Imagine living 3,000 years before the first pyramid was built. No wheels, no writing, no metal tools, but you have a pipe in your hand, and it's filled with tobacco. That's not fiction. That's archaeology. Here's when humans started smoking, and why it changed everything. Most people think smoking started with Native Americans a few hundred years before Columbus. Wrong. In the late 1930s, archaeologists were digging at a site in northern Alabama. The Tennessee River was about to flood the area because of a new dam. They had to work fast. They found dozens of artifacts, stuffed them in paper bags, and forgot about them for 70 years. Then, in 2021, a team of researchers went back to those dusty bags. They found pipe FS74, a small carved limestone tube. They ran a chemical analysis called mass spectrometry on the residue inside. They found nicotine. That pipe wasn't 500 years old. It wasn't 1,000 years old. Carbon dating of the animal bones found next to it placed the pipe between 1685 and 1530 BCE. Let me put that in perspective. That's 1,000 years older than the previous earliest evidence of tobacco smoking in North America. That means, when this pipe was being used, Tutankhamun wasn't even born yet. The Trojan War hadn't happened. The Hebrew Bible hadn't been written. And somewhere in what is now Alabama, a person was sitting by a fire, smoking tobacco through a carved stone tube. But here's the really strange part. These people were hunter-gatherers. They weren't farmers, at least not yet. But they had enough tobacco to smoke it regularly. And tobacco is not easy to grow. It requires attention, preparation, knowledge. So why would a hunter-gatherer bother? We think of smoking as a casual habit. Maybe stressful, maybe social. Ancient humans didn't see it that way. Tobacco contains nicotine. Nicotine is a stimulant. In small doses, it increases heart rate, sharpens focus, suppresses hunger and thirst. In large doses, causes hallucinations, out-of-body experiences, visions. And that's exactly why ancient people wanted it. Archaeologists have found evidence of ritual smoking and snuffing across the Americas. At a site in Peru called Chavin de Huantar, dating to around 800 to 350 BCE, researchers discovered bone tubes and spoons used to inhale psychoactive plant powders. Some of those tubes contained nicotine. Others contained a hallucinogenic plant called vilca, which produces intense but short-lived visions, about 20 minutes per dose. These rituals happened in dark, underground galleries. No light, no sound, just the shaman, the initiate, and the drug. The darkness made the visions stronger. The experience was terrifying, disorienting, and that was the point. If you went into a dark chamber, inhaled a powerful hallucinogen, and saw monsters and gods, would you ever question the shaman who led you there? That's how power worked in the ancient world. Not through armies, through altered states. So when you see an ancient pipe, don't think cigarette break. Think religious technology. Here's where it gets complicated. Tobacco is native to the Americas. You can't find it naturally anywhere else. So if you wanted to smoke tobacco before 1492, you had to be in North or South America. But smoking itself? That's older. The Greek historian Herodotus, writing in the 5th century BCE, described a practice among the Scythians, a nomadic people from Central Asia. They would take hemp seeds, throw them onto red-hot stones, and inhale the smoke. Herodotus wrote that the Scythians would howl with pleasure, and that no Greek vapor bath could compare. That's a form of smoking. And it's from around 2,500 years ago. So here's the distinction. Tobacco smoking, definitely American, at least 3,500 years old, probably much older. Smoking plants in general, probably as old as controlled fire itself. Some researchers believe humans have been vaporizing or smoking plants for at least 7,000 years. Possibly more. But here's what nobody tells you. Tobacco went global after 1492. Within 100 years of Columbus, people were smoking in Europe, Asia, Africa, the Middle East. Why so fast? Because the human brain is wired for nicotine. Nicotine fits perfectly into receptors in your brain that regulate attention, mood, and reward. It's not an accident. The plant evolved nicotine to poison insects. But in humans, at low doses, it triggers dopamine release. Ancient people didn't know the chemistry, but they knew the feeling. And once you have the feeling, you want it again. That's why pipes show up in archaeological sites across the ancient Americas. Not just in one culture, in almost all of them. From the Pacific Northwest to the Florida swamps. From the high Andes to the Great Plains. Hunter-gatherers, farmers, city builders, they all smoked. The only difference? They didn't do it every day like we do. They did it for rituals, for vision quests, for ceremonies that connected them to the spirit world. Smoking was sacred before it was casual. So here's the part that never makes it into the history books. Did any ancient culture look at tobacco and say, "No thanks"? We don't know for sure. But we do know that tobacco was often restricted. At Chavan de Huantar, the snuffing tubes were found in galleries that were closed to the public. Only initiates and priests had access. In many Native American cultures, tobacco was considered a gift from the Creator. You didn't just smoke whenever you wanted. You smoked to pray, to give thanks, to seal agreements. The plant was powerful, dangerous, not for children, not for daily use. And then Europeans arrived. Within a few hundred years, tobacco went from sacred ritual plant to global commodity. From something you smoked once a month to something you smoke 20 times a day. We didn't invent smoking. We just made it boring. So let me ask you, when you light up a cigarette or a vape, are you thinking about the shaman in the dark chamber 3,000 years ago? About the hunter-gatherer in Alabama with the stone pipe? Probably not. But here's the strange part. Your brain chemistry hasn't changed since theirs. The same nicotine receptors, the same dopamine hit, the same urge for more. We think we're modern. But when it comes to smoking, we're still living in the ancient world. And here's something even stranger, we haven't even talked about what else they were smoking. Because tobacco wasn't the only plant. Not even close. In my next video, I'll show you the drug that made ancient Egyptians trip so hard they built temples to honor it. And no, it wasn't weed. Hit subscribe so you don't miss that one.